So I know that everybody talks about the TRYX cases, and Dimitri will be covering cases, I promise you. But we want to start off with something a little bit different, and that's an air cooler. And look, TRYX is looking to see how can you make an air cooler more interesting, because they slapped, guess what, an LCD on an air cooler. But look, this is not your typical LCD. It's 720p. It looks great. Unfortunately, this is a prototype. It's a little bit dim, but you can see what they're going after if you look at any of their AIOs or some of the new cases that Dimitri is going to be covering a little bit later. So what do we have here? This is called the TRYX Turris. It has 6mm heat pipes, a standard cold plate that goes up into pretty much a regular fin array. It's a little bit thicker than some of the other air coolers on the market, but in order to compensate for that thickness, they're running two 1800 RPM rotofans. Now those rotofans are some of the better performance fans that we've tested in the last little while. They're going to be included in an upcoming 120mm fan roundup. They've also included some airflow guides in there to make sure that the airflow passes from one fin array to another in a very, very horizontal manner. The other thing that they've done is run the fans at a little bit different RPM level. So one of them is going to be running at 1800 RPM and the other one is 1850 RPM. The reason why they do that is exactly why Noctua does the same thing. When there's slight variation between the RPM levels, you get a better noise profile. The other thing that they've done here is that they've added a rail system to move the fan up and down, with the understanding that this is a larger cooler. It is a dual tower cooler, so you've got the two fans on there, and moving this fan up and down will allow you to have a little bit more memory clearance. There is another option for this cooler. It is a Turris with a single fan. That gives you 100% memory compatibility. Of course, it's going to be available in white and black. Personally, I think the white one looks absolutely stunning. This thing is beautiful, it's clean. The LCD on it, well, it does come with a cost, but it does add a lot to any build. The emphasis here is really a clean design, but also accessibility. So what TRYX has done is they've allowed you to simply remove the screen. This whole thing is basically transmitting all the information and power through a simple pogo pin setup that you can see here and here. So another thing that you can't see down here, because I don't want to slice my finger taking off rotating fans, is a very unique setup for the AMD offset mount. Instead of your typical AMD offset that happens on the brackets on either side of the CPU socket, what you have here is a little notch that's incorporated right above the contact plate on the cross brace. So you can very, very easily move this cooler upwards and downwards. That also takes into account any type of offset that you want to do for the Intel mount. So that's some great incorporations by TRYX that sort of talk towards user friendliness and installation friendliness. The price on this, it's not cheap. It's $100 US right now. Of course, that can flex upwards and downwards based on the tariff situation. But anyways, speaking of airflow and air cooling, I think Dimitri has an interesting case over there called the Flova.
So this is the Flova, the new TRYX enclosure that is in mid-tower category, and they're introducing interesting elements here. First of all, we see different color variations. White, this pink one, of course the black, there's gonna be like a minty green color variation. I would love to see a blue one, but two interesting elements about over here. We have fabric. So we have a pull tab that allows us to remove the fabric, and this thing is not only looking good, it is somewhat functional because it's going to act as a dust filter, but that's not even the most interesting thing. And to be honest, like, this fabric is a little bit restrictive. They're still trying to figure out the most optimal way that this is going to allow for your case to breathe, which is why they're introducing what they call a cross-flow fan ventilation. So this is a cross-flow fan where it intakes it from this side and it outputs it from that angle, and therefore this fan sits like that on the inside. So it intakes air ventilation from the side and it channels it towards your GPU and towards your air cooler, which is a kind of a funny way to solve for the problem where the front ventilation doesn't really breathe, but they're still trying to kind of maximize the airflow with this fabric mesh. It looks really good, but the compromise is not very breathable like we've seen, like when fractal design closures, for example, in the past. So we can still do 140s and 120s with these fan brackets that you can still maneuver to give you a little bit of flexibility for your front installation. And this fan is just going to be mounted with a standard 4-pin, so you don't have to worry about anything specific. It will spin at around 2500 RPM. It will produce an equivalent of airflow between 120 to 240 millimeter ventilation setup. So depending on the RPM. But this type of ventilation setup is actually very quiet. So it's not going to be introducing a lot of noise to the system, which is a really good sign. The fabric is removable from the front. It's all screwed in, so there where you can remove it to wash it or whatever, but you can also remove it completely in case you want to maximize airflow. And they're going to include a dust filter behind there as an optional accessory that you can put on this metal filter, just so you can maximize airflow, because we can still mount triple 120s and 140s at the front. They are offset, so they don't look that great when they're RGB, but for non-RGB fans, it's not going to be a problem anyway. So the Flova, why is the Flova the name? Because it sounds like the flower, as they tell us. So I hope to see more variation in color that's going to hopefully follow that original concept. The fabric does enter on the interior power supply shroud, and I'm hoping that they can expand the fabric further into the power supply shroud for a little bit of that indoor, outdoor living type of situation where the fabric is a little bit more consistent between outside on the inside. And here we have our standard BTF motherboard support, dual 120s on top of the power supply shroud. And because that fan is right up here, it's going to limit our GPU clearance, but I feel like it's going to be okay for most modern GPUs, as long as it delivers on good airflow. And that's one thing that they don't tell us about, like how much additional airflow improvement you are to expect with this cross-flow configuration. But I'm hoping it's going to be the future, because actually we've seen some of these cross-flow fans on other enclosures that we can't talk about yet. So that is definitely going to become the trend in 2025 and beyond. The Flova will be priced at $140, which is pretty competitive, I would say, for the cross fan and the fabric integrations. But for a little bit more of a fancy style, we have the Arc Vision and the Arc Vision OLED. This is the OLED version, and we have their curved screen that they've taken from their AIO and they've integrated to the bottom of the chassis. The screen is a 6.5-inch OLED display at 60 Hertz that runs on USB 2 internal power, so you don't necessarily need to worry about additional cabling. They are experimenting with different materials for the bottom of the enclosure, some birch wood, some different texture that is very smooth, but also looks quite unique and different, and also different integrations on the black model that looks very, very unique. I do love the ambient strip on the right side that looks unique and is going to just elevate the interior. The tempered glass is curved, it's 4 millimeters. It sits on rails for a little bit of stability and security when it comes to time to remove it. The OLED screen definitely is the priority element on the Arc Vision OLED. Of course, there's going to be an Arc Vision standard edition without the screen, but this thing definitely sets the stage.
This is the stage. I give you the stage. There's a rock band on this one. There's an anime figure on this one. What they want to do is they sort of want to play to a little bit younger crowd here. So that younger crowd, they love setting up the figurines and whatnot inside of their builds. Streamers love it as well, so I completely understand what they're doing here. So they have two screens here that project forward, and it's also reflected by a mirror. You can set anything up on there. You've got the rock band here and whatnot. Look, I know a lot of you are probably going to look at this and be like me, and you might laugh a little bit, but I love these fun little concepts that allow people to add a little bit of spice, I guess you will, to their build. So anyways, the TRYX Stage, they're trying something different. What else can we say? Anyways, I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks. I hope that you're enjoying this coverage. I am losing my voice here at the end of the day, and I will see you in the next one if I have any voice left. Take care, guys.